I'm making what I call spaghetti and meatball stoup. That's because it's thinner than a stew, but thicker than a soup. I'm gonna start the soup with classic soup fixins: carrot, celery, and onion. Gotta get a couple of cloves of garlic in there. If you give it a good whack, the garlic, I mean, just a good crack with your knife, it'll be good to go with a lot less chopping. Just pop the skins off that, and half the work is done for you. And it'll get nice and soft and yummy in the soup. It'll sweeten up and get delicious. Run my knife through that real quick. Kind of mill it. Got a little piece of skin on my finger there. Okay. Into the pot it goes. Give it a little stir. Now we're gonna start those meatballs. Now, ground meatloaf mix is ground beef, pork, and veal combined, and you get it right in the regular grocery store. You could also certainly use just ground sirloin for this. That would be excellent. Now, to the meat, I'm gonna add some breadcrumbs here. And then about half as much of the breadcrumbs, I'm gonna use that as grated cheese. The cheese really adds such a great flavor. This nice Parmigiano Reggiano here has a really mild and nutty flavor to it. Just gonna sprinkle that in. If you use about 3/4 of a cup of breadcrumbs to a cup, you wanna use about half that amount in cheese. To that, I'm gonna chop a little parsley here and just throw that in there. That just brightens up the flavor. The Italian breadcrumbs, of course, just have dried seasoning in them, so this just brightens everything up a little bit. And then I'm going to get this on up here and get the egg in there so I can start mixing it up. Now, when you're making the meatballs, you want to go for a golf ball size here. I had about a pound of ground beef, pork, and veal combined. That's called meatloaf mix. To that, I added some Italian breadcrumbs, some grated cheese, a little fresh parsley, and an egg and some salt and pepper. And you roll it up into balls about this size here, about 1.5 to 2 inches. Now I'm just gonna get my hands rinsed off. So it's a combination, basically, of soup and a spaghetti and meatball supper all in one pot. Now I'm gonna add the liquids. The meatballs are gonna cook like meat dumplings right in the soup itself, adding lots of flavor. Now I'm going to add my combination of chicken stock here. My hands are too wet to get into that little guy. Oh well, I'll take a little help from a knife. I'm gonna add a combination of chicken stock. You want 1/4 of that, and 3 cups of tomato sauce. You could also use marinara if you had that left over in the fridge. You could use stewed tomatoes. You just want to have a combination of stock and tomato product. Okay, I'm going to crank the heat on that and get these tomatoes in there. Little kids love this meal, and they could totally help you make it. Invite them into the kitchen with you whenever you're cooking. It's nice family time, too, not just eating dinner together, but making dinner together. And I was really lucky because I grew up in a family where my mom loved to cook at home, but she also worked in restaurants, and she didn't want anybody else watching her kids, right? So she used to take us with her everywhere. And I'm lucky because I grew up learning so much about food and feeling really comfortable in the kitchen. So I don't really dread cooking when I get home at the end of the day, but a lot of my friends really do. That's why I try and come up with meals like this that are like really foolproof, can-do, easy meals. Look how good that looks. Yummy. So we got the tomato and the stock working together with the fresh veggies that'll make the store-bought stock taste nice and slow cooked and homemade. Put a lid on it. As I said, crank up the heat to bring that up to a fast boil. Now I'm adding my meatballs to my spaghetti and meatball soup here, and I'm doing it one at a time so that I don't get splattered on, because this is boiling. I put a lid on it and brought my combination of chicken stock, tomato sauce, root vegetables, and garlic up to a fast boil. Then I dropped in my meatballs. That was just the ground beef, pork, and veal combined with breadcrumbs, cheese, a little fresh parsley, an egg, salt, and pepper. All right, I'm gonna get my spaghetti in the pot. Just gonna take a good handful of it. You certainly can't add a whole pound in there. It would suck up all the juice, right? Now, in this one case, Mom, I hope you're not watching. I'm gonna break the spaghetti in half. Just because it's soup, and you don't want big, long pieces of spaghetti hanging out of your spoon when you're trying to get it up to your mouth. So, I'm gonna add my spaghetti. See, I put the meatballs in a couple minutes before the spaghetti because the meatballs take like around 10 minutes to cook through. And the spaghetti doesn't need that long. It only needs like 7 or 8 minutes to get to al dente with a nice bite to it. Now, my meatballs were a combination of beef, pork, and veal with breadcrumbs and grated cheese. The soup itself was root vegetables and garlic, and a combination of chicken stock and tomato sauce. Now I'm mixing in some torn leaves of basil. I put in a handful of spaghetti, and now that is just perfect. I'm just gonna turn it off and give it a quick taste for seasoning. It's good to go. Normally I would add a pinch of salt, but I like grated cheese on top of my spaghetti and meatball soup, so I'm gonna hold off on the extra salt in there because the cheese is nice and salty. Oh, look how good this looks, huh? And even if you're just making this for yourself, leftovers are killer, kids, so make a big pot. My dog Boo could always help eat this one too. She loves spaghetti and meatballs. Look how good that looks. Oh, amazing.